guys, it's your girl Dolapo for my OG subscriber, Songbird Diva for life. Happy New Year. I'm recording this on December 31st, 2018. I know some of you won't see this until tomorrow or sometime during the new year, so big Happy New Year. A big hug and kisses to all my divas and divos and ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls that are watching it today on December 31st. I know. Let's get the pink elephant out of the room. I've been gone for over 2 years. Can you believe it? 2 years. I can't even believe it myself. It didn't even seem that long to me. But when I looked at when my last video was, I was like, oh my God, it's been over 2 years. But I am so glad to be back. So much has happened in the past 2 years. Divas, I don't even know where to start. Originally I took a break because you guys knew that I battled depression a lot. I was going, I was having like on and off bouts of depression and all that kind of stuff, and I said, you know what, I don't want any distraction. I need to deal with these issues. I need to face them head on and deal with them and get to the root of my issues, get to the root of what is causing the depression. And for the first year out of the 2, that is what I did. I tackled so many issues with my therapist. I went really deep. I tackled a lot of issues even. And let me just tell you guys, if you guys are dealing with depression, it doesn't make sense to sugarcoat what the real issue is. Get to the root of your issues. It's gonna hurt initially when you're like regurgitating all the pain and the issues that you're going through, but to be honest with you, once that is out, you feel so much better. Once it's out and once you really dealt with it, once you confront your feelings, your emotions, even those that have offended you one way or the other, once you deal with those issues, you feel so much better. And I'm not gonna lie to you, it does get a little bit worse before it gets better, because when you face the issues that you've been covering for so long, it takes a little toll, but you can do it. Please we're going into 2019. If you're watching this in 2019, we're in 2019. Please just tackle your issues. Okay, so besides dealing with that, and which I thank God I really dealt with a lot of issues, divas, and I thank God that I'm on the other side of it right now, so God is good. But besides that, a major development happened in the second half of that 2-year break. Your girl went ahead and had a baby. Yes! I am a mommy now. I'm so happy. You guys, the reason why I am recording this today, December 31st, 2018, is because I did not want the year to end without me recording this testimony. God has been so good to me. He's been so faithful. I have to share my testimony with you guys. You guys know, if you're an OG subscriber, right? I shared with you guys a while ago that I dealt with, that I have a condition called PCOS. So, my husband and I were dealing with infertility issues after we got married. Like about, let's say 2 to 3 years after we got married, we thought, okay, let's try to have a baby, because that's what people tell you you're supposed to do, have a baby after you get married. So we started trying, and things weren't happening. So I went to my gynecologist. He put me on a pill called Clomid. I was having like adverse reactions. I started seeing trails, and I was like, no, this is not going to work, because they say if you see trails, you have to stop taking it. So I stopped taking it. So they referred me to a specialist. I went to a specialist, confirmed that I had PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is just like your ovaries have like multiple little, not big ones, but like little cysts. So sometimes people can have like some symptoms are irregular periods. For some people is heavy periods. Some people it's a lot of weight gain. Some people it's just different things. Excess body hair. But for me, it was mostly like irregular periods. And because I didn't have regular periods, let me tell you guys, the first time I had my period, divas, I was 10 years old. The second time I had my period, I was like pushing on 14. Yeah, so it was a long gap. But I didn't know what was going on. I was just like, okay, I don't have to go through all this stuff that all these other girls got to go through with cramps and all that kind of stuff. I didn't have to deal with that. So it didn't really bother me. But when you are married and you're trying to have a baby, that's when it really starts to like kick you in the butt. You're like, what's going on? So went to a specialist. The specialist was like, okay, you have to do, because at the time my husband's insurance covered IUI, so we are going to do an intrauterine insemination. But before we even got to that point, you had to take medications to make your follicles, your eggs, like grow a bit so that they can drop down, and then you're supposed to get like this trigger shot, and it's a whole complex thing. But mine never even got to that point because the medication I was taking to make my eggs grow, for some reason my eggs just weren't growing. Like they were just like, we're not doing it, you know? So we did about 5 cycles of that, like 5 months of that. And after the 5th month, I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore because it takes up so much of your time. Like you literally go to the specialist every other day, like from the beginning of your cycle. You take this medication, then you have to go every other day for them to like monitor the growth and all that kind of stuff. And it just took a toll. And then to go every time and to see that your follicles aren't growing is very, very disappointing. So at that point, I was just like, we need a break. I don't want to do this. Like, you know, it was a lot emotionally. So, and now that I look back at it, I really thank God that we did not have a baby back then, because your girl was not ready to be a mom back then. I was really just trying to do it because, you know, people tell you after you get married, you're supposed to have a baby and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I thank God that it didn't happen at that time. So, fast forward to, because there's a lot in between, but I'm just going to try to fast forward to the most recent. So fast forward about, I want to say August, about the end of August of 2017, I started to feel like a lot of pain, right? Like, but it felt like gas pain. You know, like when you have a gas bubble and you're just like, oh, I have gas. What did I eat? That's what it felt like. Like you ate a lot of broccoli or something, whatever gives you gas. So that lasted for a couple of days. So I was just like, this is weird. Like, what kind of gas bubble lasts for this long? So I started taking like Gas X, started drinking teas, you know, hot water bottle, all that kind of stuff. And my husband was like, oh, you know, maybe you should take a pregnancy test. And I was like, no, because a pregnancy test does not give, a pregnancy does not give you gas. Like, what are you talking about? This is gas. I know what gas feels like. This is gas. And he was like, oh, you should take a pregnancy test. I'm like, he don't know what he's talking about. This is not pregnancy, because I never heard of a pregnancy symptom of somebody having gas, you know, like feeling like they had a gas bubble, like a painful gas bubble. So I was just like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But then like this lasted for like a week and a half. And at that point I was like, something is wrong. There's no way. I've taken Gas X. I've drank all types of teas. I slept with hot water bottles, all these things, and I still feel this gas bubble. So it was one day I was like, you know what? If it doesn't go away today, tomorrow I'm going to go to the doctor because something just isn't right. So because of that, I was like, let me just take a pregnancy test. We had one at home, but I went at home, but the one that I had at home was like so old because, you know, I told you guys like from before we were trying to conceive like years before. So I was just like, all right, it doesn't hurt. I found it under the cabinet somewhere. Let me just try it. So it had 2 tests in it, but it's the ones from the dollar store. Like, it's, first of all, it's old and it's super cheap. So I was like, I don't know how reliable this is going to be. But in my head, I already knew that it wasn't going to be a positive pregnancy test because I'm like, it's gas. But I just took it so that I could rub it in my husband's face and be like, you see, I told you it was just gas. So my husband was downstairs sleeping, and I went to the bathroom and I was like, okay, let me just take this test, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, like you're sitting down, you're looking at your phone. I'm looking at my phone, doing like other stuff. So I took the test, blah, blah, I'm looking at my phone. So after, I think you're supposed to wait 2 or 3 minutes. After 3 minutes, I'm like, okay, I looked at the test, and it has 2 lines. So I'm looking at it, I'm just like, but I'm not excited. I'm not nervous. I'm nothing. Because I'm just like, oh, this is a bad test. I knew it's because it's old. So nothing, not excited, nothing. So I was like, okay, let me just take the other one. So I took the other one, but this time I'm watching it like a hawk because I'm like, what is going on? So I took it, and you know, when you put the pee in the dropper thing, so I'm watching it, and like within less than a minute, I see 2 lines, and I'm just like, so I'm reading the box, you know, the instruction that tells you what 1 line mean, that tells you if something is wrong, if you took the test wrong or is invalid, and then tells you what 2 lines mean. So I'm looking at it, I'm just like, oh my gosh, is it possible? But then I'm like, this box is pretty old. I don't know how many years it's been here. So this time, now I'm getting like a little bit nervous. Because I'm like, okay, I have 2 that says positive. But I'm like, don't get too excited because they're old tests. So this time I go downstairs and I wake up my husband and I'm like, okay, just in case it is positive, I need like a cool way to tell him. But I didn't have like a thing planned or anything, because I didn't even think it was even a possibility, because for so long doctors told me it wasn't possible, that it wasn't possible for me to like get pregnant on my own. So I go downstairs and I wake up my husband. I'm like, oh, come upstairs and to show you something, blah, blah, blah. So I did like a little mini reveal type of thing to him. He was super excited, super happy, fell to his knees, praising God, you know, all that kind of stuff. So, but I told him, I said, look, don't get too excited. I need you to run to the store and get me another test, because these are dumb old. I need a test, but I want the ones that, I don't want anything with lines. I don't want nothing with plus or negative. I want something that says pregnant, not pregnant. So he was like, okay. So he comes back with the test. We take the test. You're supposed to wait 2 to 3 minutes. No lie. As soon as we dropped the little urine into the thing, less than a minute, boom, pregnant. No lie, divas. I almost passed out. My legs got weak. My husband had to catch me because I just could not believe it. So fast forward, we had to go to the doctor, because you know your doctor has to confirm that you're pregnant. So that was about a week and a half later. They gave me an appointment. So I go there, and now before I go, like I start to bleed. About the day before I go, I start bleeding. So I was just like, okay, what's going on? But in my head, I'm like, okay, I hear something called implantation bleeding. Don't get too nervous. I don't know what exactly this is. So I'm going to the doctor tomorrow. So I get to the doctor, tell him what's going on. He says, look, I'm not going to confirm anything for you, because he was one of the people that told me I had PCOS like early on. So he already told me that it's going to be very difficult for me to have a baby, you know, to get pregnant on my own. So he was like, I'm not going to confirm anything. You have to come every other day for about a week to see if your hormone levels are rising. Then, you know, we'll take it from there. And I told him I'm bleeding. He's like, you see, this is why I'm not going to confirm anything, because in his head, he's trying to tell me that it's possible, if I am pregnant, I could be having a miscarriage. So he's like basically trying to tell me not to get too excited. So we take the test, you know, the blood test. He tells me come back in 2 days. I come back in 2 days, but within those 2 days, I'm praying. I'm like, please, God, let this number double. Please, God, you know. So if anybody's been trying to conceive, you know what that window is like, when you're just praying, wishing, and hoping that your numbers double. So come back the next time, just like, okay, you know, that was the baseline. Take the next test. I'm like, please let it double. Come back another day. Come back another 2 days. The numbers doubled, but it did more than double. So I was like, okay, good, this is a good sign. So he's like, okay, come back in 2 days, gotta do another test. So I come back in 2 days, did another test. It doubled again. I'm like, okay, thank you, God. Let's, you know, I have to come back again. And now the last time I'm supposed to come back, I start bleeding again. So, you know, but I go back and, you know, there's like, oh, your numbers are increasing. You know, everything looks good. But I'm like, oh, but I'm bleeding. He was like, oh, you see, this is exactly why, you know, I don't want you to get too excited yet. Let's see, blah, blah, blah. So this time he was like, okay, come back. But the next time that you come, we're going to do a sonogram. So we end up I come back, the number is doubled again, which is great. And this time I'm like, okay, let's do you know, he said he's going to do a sonogram. So he does a sonogram. I hear the little boom, 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 boom. It was so amazing. But like when I see the sonogram, I'm just like, I don't know, in my head, you expecting to see something that looked like a baby, but it was just like a little, I don't know, like a little glob and with another little glob. You know, it was basically the baby sitting on, like my baby, his head was on his yolk sac. So he just wanted to be close to his food. But, you know, it didn't look like a baby yet. So I was just like, what am I looking at? I don't really understand, you know. But he was like, okay, the baby's fine. The heartbeat is good, blah, blah, blah. So he's like, okay, come back again in about, I want to say like 3-4 weeks. So I go back again. But within that time, I start bleeding again. So he was like, okay, let's see what's going on. He's looking. He's like, okay, well, maybe it's, you know, old blood. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm not nervous, nothing. It's old blood. So I go, but because I'm bleeding, he's like, okay, come back again in like 2 weeks. So I go back again. This time I'm not bleeding. Everything's looking good. But then like, I think like 2 weeks later, I start bleeding again. So I go back in and I'm like, look, this is what's going on. So he's like, to be honest with you, he does another sonogram. He says, to be honest with you, I can't tell you why you're bleeding, but your baby looks good. Once he said that, I was like, okay, cool. Maybe some women bleed off and on during the pregnancy. It's not bothering me. I'm not going to stress it. My baby looks good. My baby's healthy. Cool. Now, within the first trimester, you know, I'm a little bit nauseous, but I'm not like super nauseous. I didn't throw up or anything, but, you know, I'm a little uncomfortable. So going into like my 20-week ultrasound, you know, like the 20-week is the anatomy scan. So the anatomy scan is where they do like the full, you know, the full anatomy of the baby. It's like a sonogram of the full anatomy. They do a vaginal ultrasound as well. And about at 19 weeks, I started to feel like so good. Like I started like doing a little exercise, do a little walking, like just a little bit here and there, you know, a little bit of exercise, not too much. I looked up like little maternity exercises on YouTube, you know, do my little, you know, my little thing. And then at 20 weeks, I was going to go in, like going in, I didn't feel nervous at all. You know, I joined a forum called What to Expect, you know, when you're expecting or something like that. So I'm reading other people's experiences, and some people, you know, they're saying how they were so nervous and all that kind of stuff. But for me, I wasn't nervous at all. I was just like, I just know my baby's going to be good. So we go in for the 20-week anatomy scan, and Divas like, we go in, and the first part was a breeze. It was like, oh, your baby is good. Like the baby's developing like a few days ahead of schedule, you know, blah, blah, blah. It looks perfect. So now they do the vaginal ultrasound. And at the vaginal ultrasound, the tech is asking me, she was like, oh, are you in any pain? I'm like, no, you know, I'm fine. And then she asked me to like turn to my side, blah, blah, blah. And then she asked again, she said, oh, does your back hurt? Are you in any pain? I'm like, no, I'm fine. So she's like, I'll be right back. So she comes and brings in the nurse. The nurse is looking. So now I'm getting like a little like, what's going on? So the nurse asks me, oh, is your back hurting? Are you in any pain? I said, no. Then the nurse goes, I'm so sorry. You know, at this point, there's nothing we can do. My heart dropped. I was like, what are you people talking about? Like, what are you saying? So she's like, oh, well, you have to speak to the doctor. So I get dressed, and my husband is there. You know, I get dressed, we go to the doctor, and the doctor is like, oh, you know, he looks over my, you know, the results or whatever, and he's like, I'm so sorry, there's nothing we can do. You have to go to the emergency room. Your cervix is completely open and you're dilating. And I'm just like, how, what? It was like the Twilight Zone. I was like, what are you people talking about? I'm only 20 weeks. Like, how is that even possible? Like, what are you saying? He's like, your cervix completely open, you're dilating. There's nothing we can do. Now, thank God for YouTube, because I remember, you know, Chanel made a video about, you know, her incompetent cervix and all that kind of stuff. And the first thing that came to my mind, thank God, because Chanel shared her experience. You never know who you're going to help in the future by sharing your experience. So I said, you know, what about a cerclage? You know, I know people have cerclages because their cervix are open, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, no, you can't have a cerclage because yours is completely open. And past that point, there's nothing we can do. At that point, my legs started to get weak. I'm like, oh, my gosh. So I call my mom. I'm like crying on the phone. I'm like, this is what they're saying. And she's like praying over the phone. She's like, don't worry, go to the hospital. I'm going to meet you at the hospital. My husband takes me to the hospital. On our way there, you know, I'm like crying, but I'm talking to the baby at the same time. I'm like begging. I'm like, please just stay inside. Like begging the baby, please stay inside. It's not time. Like, you know, talking to God. I called my friend at work, you know, and she's like encouraging me. She's talking to me. She's like, don't worry, you know, there's a procedure. I said, I know, blah, blah, blah. So we get to the hospital. Now, this is a hospital that I already knew I was not going to have my baby there because it's not like the best hospital to me. But then again, you know, some people like it. I guess it's just, you know, your preference. But that's the hospital that the specialist that was doing the anatomy scan was associated with. So you have to go to the hospital. So we go to the hospital, and you know, we talk to the nurse. The nurse put me in the room. Then a resident comes in, and the resident, you know, it's this young black girl. But you know, I'm like, okay. And this is why you shouldn't stereotype people also, because I'm like, okay, she's black, she's gonna, you know, wanna, you know, fight for my baby, you know, because I'm a black girl too, you know, no, she did her job, you know, she looked at whatever, you know, she got is it speculum or whatever they put in there to open it to see, you know. So she was like, oh, you know, it's a, she's like, oh, your cervix is open and you're dilating. She was like, there's nothing that can be done. So I'm just like, girl, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, do you know how long it took us to even get to this point? I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. I've never been pregnant before. My husband and I have been married for years and years and years and years. Never been pregnant. You don't know what you're talking about. I need to speak to somebody in charge. And I know if you're a resident, there has to be like a head doctor on this floor of labor and delivery. There has to be somebody in charge. I want to speak to the head doctor in charge. So this doctor comes in. He's black. He's African. Like I read his last name. I'm just like, okay. I grew up with a lot of Africans, you know, but maybe because I grew up with a lot of Africans, I went to church or whatever, but in my head I'm looking at him, I'm like, okay, he's gonna fight for my baby. You know, I know as Africans we just don't just give up on life like that. Like, no. So he looks and he says the 2 worst words I ever heard in my life. He looks, he says, it's an inevitable abortion. I screamed no, but then all I could do was start crying, because I'm just like, this is the head doctor and he's telling me this is an inevitable abortion. Like, I've never been pregnant before. How can this be an inevitable abortion? Like, what are you talking about? Like, I want this baby. Like, what are you talking about? Especially for the fact that every time I go to the doctor, they're like, the baby's developing very well, everything is fine. What do you mean it's an inevitable abortion? I screamed no, and he looked at me, he goes, and he just walked out the room, and I was just like, no bedside manner, nothing. I was so stunned. I was stunned, you know. And in the room, I'm like, I'm hysterical. The nurses are, you know, there's nurses, there's the resident, there's a doctor. I'm just stunned, you know, but I'm like hysterical at the same time. So at this point, my mom's already there. She's trying to calm me down. My husband's trying to calm me down. So another doctor comes, and now it's this white woman, but she's like, she looked to be like in her 30s or whatever. So she's telling everybody, get out the room, get out the room, get out the room. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe, you know, she's gonna tell me something that they don't, that she doesn't want them to hear, because maybe she's gonna, you know, give me some kind of hope, tell me where to go or where I can go to get help or something. She gets everybody out the room. No exaggeration. She's rubbing my hand. Like, this lady literally gets on her knees, a doctor rubbing my hand, and she's telling me, you know, at this point there's nothing that can be done. You know, it's an inevitable abortion. You're going to lose this baby. This is what she's telling me, but she's like rubbing my hand. I don't know if in her head she's trying to be compassionate or whatever, but she's rubbing my hand and she's like, you're going to lose this baby. The only choice you can make at this point is to terminate this pregnancy. I started crying even more. I started crying, like my heart rate, because you know you're hooked up to like the monitors and all that kind of stuff. My heart rate started going crazy. Like, I'm hysterical. Everything is just, my blood pressure, everything is just going all over the place. She was like, you have to terminate the pregnancy. You know, you're not going to make it to 24 weeks, you know, because I'm telling her, I'm like, oh, you know, my husband and I, we've never been pregnant like this, been for so long. Like, you know, like I'm telling her our history, and she's like, yeah, I understand that, but she's like, you know what, the next time, you know, we'll know what to do. And I'm just like, the next time? I just explained to you how many years it took us to get to this time. Like, what are you talking about, the next time? She's like, I know, but there's nothing that can be done. It's an inevitable abortion. Your cervix is open. You're dilating. You're basically going into labor. And I'm like, but please, there has to be something. What about the cerclage? She's like, no, you're already past that point. There's nothing that can be done. So she's basically telling me my only option is to have this abortion. So I'm just like, no, like there has to be another way. And she's like, listen. She said viability is 24 weeks. She said 24 weeks is when, you know, legally the hospital is obligated to fight for your baby and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But she was like, but she's telling me plain and simple. She told me, she looked me in my eye. She said, you're not going to make it to 24 weeks. She said, I'm just letting you know now. Your cervix is completely open. You're dilating. You're not going to make it to 24 weeks. And she said, in the off chance that you do make it to 24 weeks, you're not going to go full term. And this is what she told me. She said, do you want to have a baby with disabilities? She said, look at you. You're young. You know, you have your whole life ahead of you. Is that what you want for your life? Do you really want to, you know, be weighed down by a baby with disabilities? And I'm just like, my world is spinning. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. Like, my world is spinning, because I'm just like, is this reality? Like, what is this woman saying? And then I'm still trying to explain to her, like, I have to have this baby. Like, we have to go full term, because I've never been pregnant. This is something that, you know, my husband prayed for so long. It got to a point where, you know, we prayed about it for, you know, together. Like, I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, I have to have this baby. And she's like, you're not gonna make it, and, you know, and she's basically trying to tell me, like, if I go home without having the procedure, the abortion, that basically I'm gonna sit on the toilet and my baby's gonna come out. Like, that's basically what she's trying to tell me. So she was like, you know, it's a very traumatic thing. It's better for you just to make the decision now, get it over with, blah blah blah. And I'm just like, and then she sees that I'm really like distraught, and so she just rubs my hand again, and she's like, you know, You know, you're young. You can always, you know, adopt. You can always do IVF. You can always do all these kind of things. I'm just looking at this lady like, you don't even know my history. Like, you don't even know. Like, I tried, you know, we tried like doing that IUI before, and IUI is very similar to IVF, especially in the beginning stages, because you still have to take these medications to make your follicles grow and all that kind of stuff. The medications did not do anything to my follicles. My follicles did not even grow. Like, my follicles did nothing when I was taking that medication. So, for the simple fact that God did this and you want me to end it, it's like, how? It was a lot for me to deal with, you know. And then she's like rubbing my hand, you know, you can always adopt. She said, look at me. She said, I'm 33. I'm not in a relationship, but if I get to the age where I want to have kids and I can't have kids, I'm just going to adopt. And I'm just looking at her like, now, reality, I have no issues with adoption or with any kind of thing if that's your choice. But when somebody's having a crisis trying to save their baby, that is not the time for you to be throwing out adoption and IVF and all this kind of stuff. Your concentration should be on trying to save that person's baby. And I understand it's only 20 weeks, but still, that's not the time to have that kind of conversation. So I asked her, I said, is the baby okay? Because at this point, my heart rate it's all over the place. Like, I'm hysterical, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, okay, you know what? Let's go do another anatomy scan and, you know, a full workup, whatever. Because I'm like, if the baby is not okay, that's a whole nother conversation we can have. But let's know, is the baby okay? So she sent me to do another anatomy scan. The tech doesn't know what's going on. So the tech is like showing me the baby, and the baby is fine. The baby's like literally giving me thumbs up on the right hand. Like, she takes a picture with the baby like this. So she takes a picture of the other side of the baby, and the baby's like this. So I'm like, in my head, I take it as, okay, this is the sign. Like, the baby basically telling me, I'm fine, fight for me. That's what I'm interpreting it as. Because when they're wheeling me off to do the anatomy scan, I'm like, please, God, give me some type of sign. Like, please help me. Like, I don't know what to do. I'm hysterical. I'm like, please just help me. I need your help now. So, you know, my mom is in the room, my husband is in the room, and you see like the baby like this. So now they wheel me back to where I was, and the doctor comes in, and she's like, you know what? She said, everything with the baby is fine. She said, the baby is fine. But then she goes, but you just can't hold him. I start crying. I'm like, what did I do? Did I do something wrong? You know, and I'm explaining to her, I said, okay, you know, I started to do like some light exercises, you know, did I cause this? And she's like, no, you didn't cause it. You know, this just happens to some women. Some women have incompetent cervixes. And she was like, it's not something that just happened over the past week. It's probably been happening, but nobody really noticed. Sorry about that. The camera shut off. So, you know, she's like, you just have an incompetent cervix. Some women just have incompetent cervixes. So I'm just like, what am I going to do? Oh my God, help me. What am I going to do? So she comes back to me and she was just like, you know, at this point, the only thing you can do is to proceed with the, you know, the abortion, because she was like, your cervix is wide open. You just can't hold him. It is what it is. It was like, you know, they could see my water bag, and they basically, his foot is in my cervix, like, you know. So I'm just like, I'm like, Lord, I just need you to help me. And I'm begging this woman. I'm like, can you refer me to somebody? Can you refer me to a specialist? Can you refer me to where I can get help? And she was like, it's beyond that. She was like, at this point, there's nothing that can be done. I said, okay, what about if I go on bed rest? She said, bed rest is not proven to do anything. So it's like every suggestion I bring up, she knocks it down. I'm just like, what am I going to do? You know? And then I just asked her, I said, what is the procedure? Like, you know, she was like, well, you know, to do the abortion, she was like, at this point, it's not like a miscarriage or whatever. She's like, basically, we'll give you a shot, or they do something to make the baby's heart stop. And then she says, whew. Then she said, then you have to, you know, push it out. Like, you're still going to go through labor and delivery. So in my head, I'm like, you want me to stop the heart of a baby that you just told me is perfectly healthy, and then knowingly give birth to a dead baby? Like that was just like, the reality of that was just like, I don't wish that on anybody. I don't wish that kind of experience on anybody. And I can still say to this day that that was the worst day of my life. to want something so bad, and in one day 4 different doctors are telling you that what you want and what God has done is not going to happen. So during that time, like, my husband is in the, comes back into the room, and my husband, if you know my husband is a very polite person. He's very, like, well spoken and all that kind of stuff. So he's telling me, he looks me straight in the eye. He says, I don't give a fuck what these people are saying. We're gonna have this baby, and I'm just like, okay. So it got to the point where my mom is just like, look, if you're not gonna help us, give me the papers so we can release her, we can sign her out, blah blah blah. We're going home, because nobody's having an abortion up in here. So at this point, I'm asking her, I'm like, please, just, is there something? So she gives me, she's like, I'll give you something, but she's like, I'm telling you, this is not going to work, because this is for people who is not as far along as you are, So she gives me progesterone pills, and she was like, basically you're supposed to put it in your cervix, vaginally. So I'm like, okay, it's something, it's, but she's already telling me it's not going to work. And then she gives me a paper that says to come back before 24 weeks to have an abortion. Literally, that's what she gave me. Like, she made it clear, like, she's like, if you don't come before 24 weeks, you're going to be stuck with basically telling me I'm going to be stuck. There's nothing that we'll be able to do. And you don't want a child with disabilities. You don't want a child that has all these kind of issues, blah, blah, blah. You better come before 24 weeks. So I'm just like, so we go home. And at this time, like, I don't even know what to do. I don't know where to go, because she did not give us any kind of references. Like, nobody there gave us any kind of, like, okay, see this specialist, do this, do that. Nobody helped us. So thank God, out of my friends, like, if you're Nigerian and you have a group of 5 friends, at least one of them is going to be a doctor. In my case, like, 3 of my friends are doctors. So I called one of them, and one of them was like, this is what's going on. You need to get a maternal fetal medicine specialist. I said, okay, because at this point we don't even know who to look for. I'm like home for a whole day just crying, like not even know what to do, praying, all that kind of stuff. So my friend Tolu was like, you need a maternal fetal medicine specialist. Okay, cool. We started looking for a maternal fetal medicine specialist. This happened on December 1st. Now, December 1st, I believe, was a Friday, December 1st, 2017. So we have like the whole weekend, because you can't really call anybody really on Saturday and Sunday. So we started calling on Saturdays anyway, because I'm like, okay, maybe some places are open. So I started calling a few places, and on Saturday, I called a few maternal fetal medicine specialists, and they was like, okay, how far? I explained to them the situation. They said, how far along are you? I said, I'm 20 weeks and 1 day. They said, oh, our cutoff is 20 weeks. I said, yeah, but I'm 20 weeks and 1 day. They was like, our cutoff is 20 weeks. We can't help you. And I'm just like, so I called another one. When is, how far along are you? I said, I'm 20 weeks and 1 day. They was like, oh, we can't help you. Our cutoff is 20. I called 3 different places, and they all told me the same thing. Their cutoff is 20 weeks, period. And I'm 20 weeks and 1 day. At that point, I lose it. Because I'm just like, what is this? By 1 day? Like, really? What is going on? So I tell my husband, I said, suppose nobody helps us. What are we going to do? Like, so my husband, being a calm, prayerful person that he is, he's like, don't worry, God is gonna handle this. So my mom comes to visit me, and I'm crying again. My mom's like, she looks at me, she said, don't cry anymore. She said, God has already appointed the person that's gonna help us, the specialist is gonna help us. We just don't know who it is yet. And I'm just like, okay, like, but we need to know who it is. Like, nobody's helping us. So on Monday, because Sundays, place is gonna be closed. So on Sunday, my husband starts to call places. So, on Monday, he starts to call places. So he ends up looking for one doctor, but that doctor didn't work at the place anymore. So they referred him to the head of the maternal fetal medicine department. So he's speaking to her assistant, or her nurse, and my husband explaining the whole situation, and the nurse is like, oh, she's right here. The head of the department is right here. She's about to leave, but do you want to talk to her? Now that in itself is like, whoa, because normally you can't talk to the specialist, especially the head of the specialist. Maybe you'll talk to like a receptionist, if you're lucky the nurse. So my husband speaking to the specialist and explaining the situation to the specialist, and the specialist is like, I understand completely what you're talking about, I know what you mean, blah blah blah. So the specialist telling my husband, your wife sounds like a candidate for a cerclage. She said, I'm about to leave, but I'm going to put my head resident, I'm going to let her know what's going on. Don't come now because the labor and delivery area is really crowded, but come later. So my husband comes and tells me, and my mom is there. So he tells us, and me and my mom looking at each other like, is this real? Like, you know, so we're like, okay, let's pray about it, because we were just like asking God, like, you know, please show us where to go, what to do. And all of a sudden my husband comes and it's like, this is what's going on, we found somebody. So I was like, okay, let me pray about it, you know, because being ultra Christian, sometimes you take, when it comes too easy, you're like, maybe I need to pray about this, you know. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna pray about this, maybe we won't go today, we'll go tomorrow. But God was like, psych, you're going today, because guess what happened within a couple hours? My mucus plug came out. I went to the bathroom, on the napkin, a big glob of mucus, like my mucus plug came out. So that basically means there's nothing basically closing my cervix. My cervix is completely open, I'm dilating, anything can happen at that point. So at that point we're like, nope, we're going to the hospital. So that evening we ended up at the hospital, and it was such a pleasant experience. It was NYU Langone in Brooklyn. Like, it was a night and day experience from the other hospital that I was sent to. It was a night and day experience. And originally I wasn't even supposed to have my baby at, you know, I'm about to even associate with NYU Langone. It's my first time even being there. I didn't even know there was an NYU Langone in Brooklyn, you know. So you know, we go there. It was such a pleasant experience. I'm speaking to the head resident, and the first thing I told her is, please don't mention anything about an abortion, because at that point I don't want to hear anything negative. She looked at me, she was like, why would I mention anything about an abortion? So I told her what was going on, and you know what the other hospital said, and she was like, whoa, like she couldn't believe it. She was like, they said that, you know. And I told her about the whole inevitable abortion and, you know, all this kind of stuff. She was like, whoa. So she examines me and she was like, you look to me like you're a good candidate for a cerclage. But she said, you know, the head of the department is going to come tomorrow morning. That's the lady that my husband spoke to. She's going to come tomorrow morning and she'll examine you. And if she says that you're good, you go ahead and do the procedure. So at that point, like, she gave us some type of hope. So we stayed overnight at the hospital, and my husband and I were just praying, like, we're just like hopeful. So in the morning, the head doctor comes in, Dr. Nathan, and she was such a breath of fresh air, like, great bedside manner. She explained to us, you know, everything. Like, she examined me herself, and she was like, you look like a good candidate for the cerclage. But she explained to me, like, the risk and all that kind of stuff. But at this point, it's like, we just wanted an opportunity to fight for our baby. Like, just give us an opportunity. Like, whatever I have to do to myself physically to fight for this baby, to keep this baby inside me so this baby can grow, I wanted to do it. So she explains the risk. She draws out the procedure so we can fully understand. Like, she takes her time. And she was so calming to us. She was so patient with us. So around 10, 11 o'clock, they wheel me in to go do the procedure. I'm like shaking. I'm super nervous because it's basically like they give you like an epidural to like numb you from the waist down, and they put like a sheet in front of you so you don't really see what's going on, and then put you like on a bed, but the bed like tilts where your head is down here and your feet are up here, because she says she wants the water bag to like slide down so that while she's sewing my cervix closed, she doesn't want to puncture the bag, because basically if you puncture the bag, the pregnancy is over, you know. So I'm like nervous, you know, the anesthesiologist is in there, like the nurses are in there, and they're so pleasant with me, they were so patient with me. So I'm looking around and I'm like nervous, I'm shaking. So the anesthesiologist is like rubbing my shoulders, you know. She's like, relax, it's okay. She's like, you know, are you okay? And then she's asking me, she's like, oh, are you nervous? I'm like, yeah. She's like, oh, what are you nervous about? I'm like, oh, you know, I don't even know, you know, when she's gonna start, blah blah blah. And literally she's like, oh, when she's gonna start? She said she's almost finished. And I'm like, what? So at that point I'm like, relax. So there's a nurse across from me sitting down, and then the nurse is looking at me. The nurse is like, you know, like just encouraging me, like, okay, everything's going well. I'm like, okay, you know, just, you know. So at the end of the procedure, you know, the doctor looked to me, she's like, you know, we did the best we could, you know, I closed it, you know, I did what I was supposed to do. She's like, so, you know, just take it easy. Within the first week or two, like, come back to us so we can, you know, examine it. So now I switch everything over to this doctor because I'm like, this is who I want to go to. Forget these other people that told me all this nonsense. I switched everything over to this doctor. So I was seeing her like basically every 2 to 3 weeks. So I'm seeing Dr. Nathan, and every time we go, it's like you hold your breath because you're just like, you know, you read other people's, you know, cerclage journeys, and some people, it doesn't progress past the week. Like after a week, maybe they can get like an infection, and then it weakens the water bag, and then that's the end of the pregnancy. So I'm just like, so, you know, I go home at the end of the cerclage, you know, I'm on bed rest, like for the whole time. I thank God for my husband because he was so patient with me. Like he took off for work. I thank God that basically he works for himself, so he was able to take off for work and just be with me and just really encourage me and do the things that I couldn't do anymore. And just I have the best husband in the world. I know some of y'all think y'all got the best husband in the world. I got the best husband in the world. Like he was super supportive. I couldn't ask for more than what he did. Like he went above and beyond. And I know you're like, oh, you're his wife, that's his baby, he should. But he really exceeded my expectations. Like he really is the best. So now we're going, you know, to our appointments every 2 to 3 weeks. And, you know, the first couple of appointments, the baby's foot is still in my cervix. And she, you know, she's like, you know, we really need to get his foot out of your cervix so that it doesn't put, you know, apply more pressure. And then after the cerclage, about a week after the cerclage, I developed like this crazy cough. Like I'm talking about a crazy cough to the point where I would talk and I couldn't breathe. I started coughing, all this kind of stuff. So when I would go for my regular appointments, you know, I would end up in the ER in labor and delivery because they're like, okay, you know, my heart rate was all over the place. They said I had tachycardia, which is normally like your heart rate is supposed to be like below, like it's supposed to be like in the 90s or whatever. My heart rate was like in the 120s, pushing 130. So when they take me to the emergency room, the nurse is like, oh, have you been running? And I'm like, running? I'm pregnant. Where am I running to? She's like, because your heart rate is like as a person that's been running. And I'm like, no, I haven't been running. So each time I would go for an appointment, like at least 4 times I ended up in the emergency room. And I'm just like, what is this? You know, and then with me being in the emergency room, they're like, okay, they're concerned about the cough, so they put me on an inhaler. They said maybe it's asthma, and I'm like, I've never had asthma before in my life. They're like, oh, you know, some people develop asthma later in life. I'm just like, okay. So I'm taking an inhaler, and the inhaler would work for like an hour, but the thing with an inhaler is you're only supposed to take it every 4 hours, and I'm just like, after an hour, like I'm like insanely coughing again. So I explained this to the doctor. So now the doctor was like, okay, you need to see like ear, nose, and throat because we need to control the cough. Because you know when you cough, you don't realize like your whole body is affected. Like I feel it in my cervix whenever I cough. Like I feel the pressure in my cervix. So there's like, okay, we need to tackle this cough. Go to ear, nose, and throat. I went to ear, nose, and throat. The ear, nose, and throat, you know, did the examination, put a thing up my nose, down my throat, all that kind of stuff. They was like, this is not an ear, nose, and throat issue. Everything is fine. I'm like, okay. He said you need to see a pulmonologist. Maybe it's a lung issue. So I'm just like, go to see the pulmonologist. Now, there's like a couple of weeks between these appointments. Go to see the pulmonologist. The pulmonologist is like, you know, he does his exam. He's like, this is not a pulmonology issue. He, you know, because when I was in the emergency room, they were able to see it, like chest x-ray and all, you know, all that kind of stuff. So the pulmonologist is like, this is not a pulmonology issue. Go back to ear, nose, and throat. I'm like, I'm not going back to ear, nose, and throat because the ear, nose, and throat already told me this is not an ear, nose, and throat issue. So now at this point, I still have the rapid heart rate. I still have tachycardia. So now I have an appointment to see a cardiologist. I go to the cardiologist. The cardiologist is like, yeah, your heart rate is super fast, but everything else is normal. Your EKGs, your ECG or something like that, all that kind of stuff. She said everything is fine. She said maybe this is just how your body reacts to pregnancy, you know. And I'm just like, okay, if everything is fine and this is just how my body reacts to pregnancy, fine. So at this point, remember, I got my cerclage at 20 weeks and 3 days. No, 20 weeks and 4 days is the day that I got the cerclage. So each week that passes, I'm praying to God. I'm just like, please let me just get to 24 weeks. If I get to 24 weeks, I know that they will fight for my baby. You know, they'll fight for the life of my baby, even if it's in NICU or whatever, they'll fight for the baby. So we get to 24 weeks, my husband and I are ecstatic. We're like, oh my gosh. So we just kept on giving ourselves like little milestones, like, okay, let's just get to 28 weeks. If we get to 28 weeks, the baby, even if it's a preemie, will have like a better chance of surviving. So we'll do like these little mini celebrations when we will hit a milestone. So at 28 weeks is when you're supposed to do your sugar test. So I go to do the sugar test, come to find out I had gestational diabetes. And I'm just like, so I'm still on bed rest, have gestational diabetes, so now I have to be extra careful with things that I eat because I don't want it to get out of control to the point where I have to take insulin. So I started like watching what I eat, like restricting carbs, eating more like fats and proteins and, you know, things like that. And that really helped me a lot. So we got to 20 weeks, we did a little celebration. So when they did the sonogram, they was like, oh, the baby's foot is out of your cervix. I'm like, yes. They was like, the baby's foot out of your cervix, but your cervix is funneling. And I'm just like, oh. But at that point, I was like, I don't really care. We're at 28 weeks, baby's foot is out of my cervix. If the baby was to come now, it wouldn't be the best, but I'm like, my baby will have a fighting chance. So our next milestone is at 32 weeks. We get to 32 weeks, I'm just like blown away. I'm like, if the baby came now, it'll still be a preemie, but it'll have like such a good chance of survival, you know. And especially because at that point now I'm measuring about a week ahead. So like my baby's like growing like super well. He's in the high percentile. So we get to 32 weeks. We're so excited. You know, I see the specialist and she's so happy for us. She's like, okay, I'm going to see you at 34 weeks. So we go see her 34 weeks. She's like, oh, I'm so happy for you guys, blah, blah, blah. She's like, come back at 36 weeks. 36 weeks, she's super ecstatic. She's like, okay, we're going to take out your cyclage at 37 weeks. I'm like, yes. I'm like, at 36 weeks, if the baby came now, the baby practically like full term. We good in the neighborhood. So I'm super happy. And I remember being in her office with my husband, and she looks at us and she says, I'm so happy for you guys. She said, when you guys came in, she said, I was so nervous for you because I knew how bad you guys wanted this. She said, your husband was so passionate when he spoke to me over the phone. When I met you guys in real life, like, she basically was like, I wanted this so badly for you. So when she did this cerclage, she was just like, she was so happy for us, but she was nervous at the same time. And she's telling us this now at 36 weeks. She was like, you know, obviously I couldn't tell you guys then, but she's like, I'm so happy that you guys even got this far. She said, some people don't even make it this far. She said, I've done so many cerclages, and not every story ends up to where the patient goes to 36 weeks. I'm just like, it's God, you know, I'm just thanking God. So at 37 weeks, you know, I'm reading like forums, and the forums are like, oh, it's possible if they take out your cyclage, you can have the baby that day. So I got, you know, I'm packed up, I'm ready, just in case they tell me, you know, the baby's coming that day. We are prepared. I got my thing in the car. I got my my to-go bag in the car. We're good. So I on the table, they're taking out the doctor's taking out the cyclage, and I'm like in pain. I'm like, this hurts. Like, I don't know. Some people say it don't hurt. It hurt. So the doctor that was taking it out, she looks at it, and like after she takes it out, she shows it to me, and it's literally just like this big. But the doctor that put in the cyclage, Dr. Nathan, she tied like 20 something knots. Like the doctor was telling me, she's like, that's why it hurt so bad to take it out, because she was like, this doctor did not want your baby going anywhere. And I just smiled. I was just like, it's just God that used her. And I'm so happy that Dr. Nathan allowed herself to be used. Like, it was literally this long, the cyclage, but it had so many knots in it, and I was just like, look at God, you know. And I know that it wasn't the cerclage, it wasn't just the cerclage that kept my baby in there, because even after they took out the cerclage, you know, people was like, oh, when you take out the cerclage, especially in my situation where they say your cervix is already open and you're already dilated, your baby's gonna come. My baby did not come at 37 weeks. He did not come at 38 weeks. When it was pushing 38, I had an appointment at 38 weeks and 3 days. I said, look, because at that point I gained so much weight. Divas, for my pregnancy, I gained 60 pounds. I was so swollen. My feet were so swollen. My hands were swollen. I used to make fun of myself and say my feet looked like a loaf of freshly baked bread, like so swollen. So I waddled into the doctor's office and I said, look, I can't go past 39 weeks. I can't, like, physically, I just cannot. I need to be induced at 39 weeks. And they was like, you know, normally we don't induce until 41, blah, blah, blah. But she's like, since you had gestational diabetes, we could use that as a reason to induce the labor at 39 weeks. So the day it was 39 weeks, they set an appointment for that day. I went in on that Friday at 39 weeks. And, you know, they start the induction. They start the induction in the afternoon. I was pretty comfortable. Like, I didn't even need an epidural until like late in the night. So I was like, oh, I got this, blah, blah, blah. Took a little nap. In the middle of the night, I said, woof, I need an epidural. So I ended up getting an epidural. And I was super, like, comfortable, but kind of, like, still a little uncomfortable on one side. And the nurse would come to check on me. She was like, are you okay? And I'm like, I feel a little pain on one side. And she was like, you really shouldn't feel any pain. So they called the anesthesiologist in again. And the anesthesiologist was like, okay, it looks like something shifted, blah, blah, blah. So they gave me another epidural. But after that, I was super comfortable. So doctors will come and check in on me to see if I'm dilated, how far I'm dilated. So around, I want to say like 2 in the afternoon, they were like, okay, and now this is Saturday. So they was like, okay, it's time. Like, you're going to have to start pushing because, girl, it's go time. So, like, we're all excited. My mom is in the room. Dana's in the room. My friend Adela. So I'm pushing. Now you have to remember, I didn't get to go to any Lamaze classes or anything because I'm on bed rest. I'm not even sure what to do. So the nurses are helping me. They're like, okay, this is what you do. You got to push like you're taking a poop, basically. So I'm like, all right. And they wanted me to hold my legs up, but my legs were so swollen and so heavy, I couldn't physically hold my legs up. I couldn't. So the nurses helped me, like, one nurse was here, the other nurse was there holding my legs up. So I pushed for like probably like an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. But it even seemed that long to me. Maybe the whole process was about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Maybe. But at the end of it, I had the most beautiful baby. Like, and I know all mothers think that their babies are beautiful, but my baby is beautiful. So I had the most beautiful baby boy. Like, I still can't believe it. Like, I'm somebody's mom, like, you know. So, you know, they clean him up, you know. Actually, before they clean him, they put him on me. But at that point, I'm so like happy but hysterical and scared to even look. So I'm just like, I'm just holding him like this. I'm like, like that. So they take the baby, they clean up the baby. But I realized that I'm like, okay, I didn't hear him cry. But as soon as I said that, he started crying. I'm like, okay, everything's fine. They clean him up. They put him on me, and I looked at him for real. I'm just like, you're so beautiful. That was the first thing I said to him. I was just like, you're so beautiful. You know, it was so amazing, like, to look at this person that you fought for, that God gave you the privilege to carry, that the God gave you the privilege to be a mom through. Like, it's just, it's so amazing, you know. So your girl is a mom. It was so amazing. And I thank God, like, my labor and delivery wasn't even bad. Like, you know, like, I know some people, their pregnancy is great and maybe they didn't have a great labor and delivery or vice versa. But I thank God that my labor and delivery was pretty good. Like, I feel like God made up for the fact that I didn't have such a great pregnancy, that the labor and delivery was pretty good. So they weigh him and they tell me, there's like, oh, he's 9 pounds, 9 ounces. As soon as they said that, I said, what? Like, I vaginally pushed out a 9 pound, 9 ounce baby. Me. Can you believe it? It still amazes me because I'm just like, how? And I thank God that I actually be induced at 39 weeks. And I'm like, imagine if I went to 41 weeks. Like, that baby would have been probably like 11 pounds something. They're probably like, okay, you're going to have this C-section or something. And I'm just like, I mean, if that's what has to be done, that's what has to be done. But I'm just like, I thank God that I was like pretty solid in knowing my body and knowing like I can't go on. Like, it was just too much. Like, I felt like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. I was like, this is too much for my body. Like, this baby needs to come out at 39 weeks. So I say all that to say that your girl is a mommy. And I'm so happy. I thank God, and give God all the glory, because this was a lot. It was very trying. And I just want to say to all of you guys that are trusting in God for something, and even though it, you know, people might be telling you that it's not going to happen, that you have to give up on this dream or whatever, hold on to what God says. Because I even remember driving back home the worst day of my life with my friend, and I was just telling her, I said, I don't know what to do. Like, all these doctors are telling me, 4 doctors are telling me to end this pregnancy. And she's a person that always reminds me. She's like, Dolapo, do you believe that God is your father? And she's like, do you believe that you can ask anything from your father? I'm just like, yes. So she was like, okay, I know right now you feel like you don't have the faith, but she's like, ask God to increase your faith so it's not on you. And I'm telling you, that shifted my paradigm, because then it made me feel like, okay, well, 4 different doctors told me that this wasn't going to be possible. So I remember driving home with her and I said, please God, increase my faith. Give me the reason to hope and to believe more and more each day. And I'm telling you, God did it. Every little celebration we had at 24 weeks, at 28 weeks, at 32 weeks, every little celebration was something. Like, even we had like a weekly calendar where we were like, okay, when it gets to 27 weeks, we're gonna buy this for the baby. Or because I was so scared to even buy anything, because you don't know, you know. And I remember at 27 weeks, I was like, okay, we're gonna buy the baby a blanket. At 28 weeks, we're gonna buy this. At 32 weeks, we're gonna buy a crib. At 36 weeks, we're gonna buy a stroller. And, you know, little things to celebrate. And God did it. Like, I have a healthy baby. My baby is now 8 months old. Like, he's so handsome. His name is Zion. Like, if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen him. He's all over my Instagram. He has his own Instagram page called I Am Zion the Lion. Like, he really is but besides, you know, God, my husband, he really is the love of my life. Like, you know, and he's brought so much joy into our life. Like, I was scared that I was going to have postpartum depression, because I was a person that has a history of depression. I did not have any postpartum. It was really like him coming to my life shines so much light and love upon my life. I have not had to deal with depression in such a long time. I really have not dealt with depression in over a year and a half. Like, I just thank God. I just thank God. I just thank God. Like, that's why I've been gone. I've been gone because I battled one area when it was depression, and then I had to battle another area fighting for the life of my son, and then, you know, raising my son, and it's just been so pleasurable. But I am back now. And I just wanted to share this testimony with you guys because God is good. He's been so faithful. And I wanted to record it today, December 31st, 2018, because my son was born April 14th, 2018. And I just want to say a big thank you to the year of 2018 for blessing me, for all the gifts that it's presented to me. I thank God for my baby. I thank God for my husband. I thank God for the family that he's created for us. And I just trust and believe that 2019 is going to be so much better. And if you're believing in something for 2019, don't let anybody talk you out of it. Don't let any doctors, naysayers, teachers, family talk you out of your dream, talk you out of what you know is yours. Don't let anybody talk you out of it. I don't want to get too crazy now because this video is already super long, but I just want to introduce you to my little boy, Zion the Lion. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go get him. I'll be right back. Hey guys, so this is my honey bunny. He's not feeling 100% right now, so he's not really in the mood, but I'm gonna try to show you guys. Zizi, look Zizi, look Zizi. Oh, look at my honey bunny. Look at my honey bunny. Look at my honey bunny. Oh, here he goes. Here he goes. There 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 he goes. Hey Zizi. Hey Zizi. Huh? Look at my bunny. Look at my bunny. So guys, this is Zion. I'll tell you more about him in other videos and his full name and all that kind of stuff. Yes. Yes. So he just wants to say hi. Hi. So this is him. You'll see him more and more in some of my videos. And like I said, I'm back and I'm posting more. And I hope to, you know, post a lot more in the new year and be a lot more consistent. And my husband's gonna say a quick hi. Hi.
Hi.
Come a little bit closer. A little bit closer. Hi.
Hey.
Hey.
It's been a while. Good to see you guys.
Hey.
Hi. All right.
Alrighty. All right,
Kisses.
guys. So happy New Year and lots of love and hugs and kisses from our family to yours.
Happy New Year.